Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's nice to see some faces, familiar faces. We've, I know it's been a rough go for, several years, several months during the course of this year for everybody. So when I make a comment to say that, everything has been going great, please don't misunderstand and misinterpret, my relative term. When I been going great. What I mean to say is that from the time that we finally were able to get started with fall practice, we had to delay it. Originally, we were going to start, I believe, September 13th. We had to delay it till September 20th. Then we had to delay it until September 27th. And then because of some positive tests and isolations and things like that, quarantines, we had to delay until September the 30th. For the first time ever, we started fall practice on a Wednesday. But from September 30th all the way through today, really, I mean, today's an off day because of election day, but through through November 2nd, we have not had a positive test. We haven't had anybody in quarantine. We haven't had anybody in isolation. We've had the entire team together without any kind of disruption, with the exception of, I think we had one rain day. We had started practice and it started to rain. We didn't get the tarp on the field in time and it made the field unplayable. The weather's been beautiful for us. We're down to our last 3 days of practice, which will be tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, which will be games 1, 2, and 3 of our Purple versus Gold series. Like I said, the weather has been phenomenal. We've gotten so much good work done. I'm just so thrilled that we were able to have a fall practice, and knock on wood that we get through these next days unscathed. We got an awful lot done, found out a lot about our team. We found out that we have some really outstanding new players in our program to complement the returning players that we do have. And I'm excited about this team. And I think this team can certainly make a run at it. And, if our pitching turns out to be as elite as I believe it is, I think it's going to give some time for some of these young players to really get acclimated to the college game, because we're going to count on some young players. And I think we got a chance to have a good, solid lineup with a great pitching staff. And it's I think that can lead to championship caliber baseball.
All right, guys, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you're welcome to.
Hey, Paul, it's Wilson. Hope you're doing well. You mentioned those freshmen. Who's standing out so far and really impressing you?
Well, really, from a position player standpoint, there's been 5 that have really jumped out. If we were going to start the season tomorrow, 3 of them would be in the starting lineup. And there's a possibility that a couple more could still make inroads into that lineup. I know that seems crazy to think that an established program like LSU could play that many freshmen, but that's how talented these guys are. Of course, everybody knows about Dylan Cruz. He received a lot of notoriety even before he arrived here, and he has lived up to the billing. He's hit a couple of home runs. One of them was an amazing blast. I think you were there that night, Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. 3-run homer that hit halfway up the video board in left field. I mean, it was an absolute blast. I think it measured about 457 feet or something to that effect. He had another one the other day against the wind to left field, and he hit it and he started to pimp it a little bit, and the wind was galing in from left field, and I think it hit in about the 3rd row of the stands. And so I was hoping it would hit off the wall to really teach him a lesson. But he hit it so good that it still went out of the ballpark. But it still gave me a good opportunity to make a coaching point with him. Don't get me wrong, Dylan plays the game really hard. He plays it the right way. He's been very accepted by his teammates. And he's made it very clear he should be an everyday player for us without question. The only question was going to be whether or not he plays center field or right field. And I think, that Giovanni has come along enough that he's going to get the opportunity to be the everyday center fielder. So we moved Dylan over to right field, and he looks really good there. The guy that has been the highlight of fall practice for me personally has been the first baseman out of Brother Martin High School, John Morgan, but he's Sean Morgan III, so everybody calls him Trey. And Trey has just played phenomenal baseball. In your coaching career, you've come across kids throughout, your many years, and something stands out about them. I'll bet you in my 40 years of coaching, or roughly 40 years of coaching, I've probably had 3 or 4 first basemen that have stood out because they're so good defensively at first base. You usually put just a good hitter at first base and hope he can catch throws that hit him in the chest. This kid is going to impact the game in a big way with his defense. He's going to pick balls in the dirt. His footwork around the bag is amazing. He's long, like they describe basketball players sometimes when a guy is driving the key and he's got that wingspan. He's got that wingspan where he can reach and stretch for balls wide or above his head that a lot of kids don't get to. And he's got the athleticism to keep his foot on the base. How often have I talked at a press conference about how great a first baseman was defensively? So you can imagine how, rarely I've done that. So you can imagine, just how impressed I am by this kid. And oh, by the way, he might hit 3-hole for us too. He's as tough and out as we have on the team. He's hit the best pitchers. He hits with 2 strikes. He hits in the clutch. He's also a very good base runner. You say, what can't this kid do? And honestly, I don't really see anything that he can't do. He looks like a future major leaguer to me. And I think we're very blessed to have him there. And he's done such an amazing job that it encouraged me to take Cade Beloso and try to find another position for him. And Cade, by the way, has come back, and this is 3rd year in the best shape of the life that I have known of his life in 3 years. He's much more agile. He's faster runner. So we've moved him to left field in hopes that he can go out there and be a serviceable left fielder, very much like Ray Frimes. We moved him to left field, and he worked so hard and became a good left fielder. And I think Cade can potentially do that, which opens the door for us to be able to play Trey Morgan at first base. The third freshman that's really jumped out is probably the littlest freshman, a kid by the name of Will Safford. He's from U High. Will is the best way for me to describe Will, and this would go for people like Lynn and Kevin and William and all the people who have been around here for several years, Jeff, is he's a left-handed hitting Tyler Hanover. He's undersized, but he's a baseball rat. He just loves the game. He's going to get down and dirty. He's the ultimate hustler. He plays the game 100 miles an hour with his hair on fire. We put him out in center field for a while. He was a high school shortstop, by the way. We put him in center field for a while, and he could play center field for us. Not maybe quite the range that Giovanni has because of Giovanni's amazing speed, but he hustled and made some great catches in center field, but we moved him back into third base. Everybody that's been around me long enough knows how much emphasis I place on third base. I think it's the most underrated position on the field. And Will's just one of those kids that's going to stick his nose in there, and if the ball's hit 100 miles an hour off the bat, he's going to throw his body in front of it, knock it down, and come up and, throw a missile to first base. So, it's not a prototypical third baseman, but he's stood out. He played. He's a lot, like I said, left-handed hitter. He can bunt. He uses the whole field. He's got surprising pop in his bat. And if we were going to start the season tomorrow, he'd be in there. Now, the other 2 freshmen, Wilson, Jordan Thompson has, at the beginning, he played really well. Then he went through about a lull for about 10 days. And then I moved him back to shortstop off third base, and he's playing great again at shortstop. He's really played well the last week. He's, I guess, kind of relaxed and gone back to a position where he's more comfortable. He's played all his life. And he's played much, much better. And Brody Drost has had his moments, left-handed outfitter from Barb High School. There was a time earlier this fall where I would have thought Brody Drost would have been a lock for being in the starting lineup, but he cooled off a little bit. Other guys have played well. We've made some moves with the outfield, but I would say that Brody is still very much in the hunt to be the starting designated hitter going into the season. So it's quite possible we could have as many as 4 or 5 freshmen in our starting lineup pretty early in the season. And we'll see how that plays out. But right now, if the season was to begin, we'd have 3 with 2, competing hard for starting jobs. Everybody's on mute.
You're muted, Lynn. Technology kills him, Coach.
All right, here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Based on the last 4 or 5 weeks of, quote, normalcy, and that's wonderful news that things are progressing as you hope they would, is there any way, I know you're thinking ahead, you always are, about projecting to, okay, we're coming up on January, then we're coming up on February, and then we're going to start playing the season. Are there any suspicions or any super concerns you have that, hey, there is something out there going to grab us and pull us back, or based on what you've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've got a real chance if we remain vigilant to make this happen like we want to?
Yeah, well, I'm always the optimist, Lynn, and, I've pleaded with the kids to make sacrifices. And we were not immune to the coronavirus, I can assure you. Our team was a mirror of society and what we're going through, okay? But we've had some kids, and they've all, become healed. Like my grasp of the English language is not as good as you guys. They've all returned to normal, and they're all feeling great, and everybody's doing well. But we have to remain vigilant, and we have to remain making good decisions. And the kids are going to go home before Thanksgiving, and they're going to be gone until they return on January 11th for school. And what exposures they have, I can't control. All I can do is plead with them to wear their mask, plead with them to, keep applying the principles of social distancing and washing their hands and keeping their social gatherings small. I first did it in steps. I asked them to do this for a month, and they've done it for a month. We're getting through the entire fall practice now from the beginning to the end without any setbacks. So it shows you that they have the discipline to do the right thing. And now when they're home, will they continue to have that discipline to do the right thing? We certainly hope so. And I know, because I watch sports around the country, that, you can lose your quarterback like that. Clemson loses their quarterback for a couple of weeks. We could lose Trey Morgan for a couple of weeks. We could lose Jaden Hill for a couple of weeks. We could lose Landon Marceau and others. And for pitchers that have to come back and get their arms in shape and so forth, it could be longer than a couple of weeks. So going into the spring, I'm a worrier. I'm an optimist, but I also worry about everything that potentially could go wrong without question. And, I know that if we stay healthy from this COVID thing, there's naturally going to be injuries, slight injuries, hopefully nothing significant. You deal with those, and that's why you got to go beyond the starting 9. You got to have 12, 13, 14 position players you can be confident. You have to have a dozen pitchers that you can be confident in, because things are going to happen, and I don't doubt that they will. And it's a long season. We're just going to have to roll with it and do the best that we can with the guys that are available to us. But I do feel confident, Lynn, that we've got a good group of kids put together. They're going to try to do the right thing off the field. And when they get on the field, I think they're going to play the game hard. I think we have some talent, and I think we have a chance to do something special this year.
Hey, Coach, it's Jared. We've been looking at all these stats that these guys have been putting up through all these scrimmages, and it just seems like Landon Marceau has really been throwing it very well. I mean, it looks like he only had given up maybe one run over all of his appearances. Has he taken like another jump to where he's like even better than he was last year? Or do you think he's just really keeping it consistent with what he was performing with last year?
Well, I thought he was pretty good, Jared. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought him up because along with Trey Morgan, Landon Marceau has probably been the highlight of the fall. And to be honest with you, AJ Labus isn't far behind him, okay? Both of those guys have pitched tremendous baseball this fall. And we saw a big jump with Landon from his freshman year to his sophomore year. I don't know if you can say it's a huge jump because he was pretty good last year. But last year he came up with a knockout slider, and that slider has been virtually unhittable this fall by our own guys. They know what's coming. They still can't hit it. And his command with his fastball has been outstanding. His changeup has continued to develop. And he's older. He's more experienced. He's more confident. He knows what to expect. I mean, Landon Marceau is pitching like an all-SEC pitcher this fall. And he's been going against some pretty good hitters. I mean, our best hitters have struggled against Landon Marceau. So that tells you that he's ready to go and be a real force in the SEC this year. So one of the things we're going to do, and Bill, I've been busy this morning, so I didn't get to see your press release, but I don't know if you sent out the lineups and how we're going to do it this year.
Yeah, I have not yet, Paul.
Okay. Well, can I give him a bit of a preview of how we're going to do the purple versus gold? So listen, things are fluid and we know that, okay? But we put together a lineup for fall ball that we think if today was opening day, this would be our starting lineup. Now it can change. Now I'm not saying this is etched in stone. And what we're going to do is pitch against that team for the other. I think the gold team is that team that would be considered quote unquote the first string lineup. Okay. The purple team, 3 starting pitchers are going to be Landon Marceau, Jaden Hill, and AJ Labus. And the bullpen is going to be all the veteran bullpen guys, Matthew Beck, Devin Fontenot, Mikhail Hilliard, and so forth down the line. So there's 9 pitchers on each team. So the 9 pitchers that'll be pitching against the number 1 lineup, along with 3 starting pitchers, will be our top returning pitchers, okay, and our starting rotation. And we're going to test that lineup against a elite SEC pitching staff and see how they handle it. It also is going to give 3 of those starting pitchers a chance to pitch against a good SEC lineup. And in all honesty, to me, it's still a little bit fluid what order those 3 guys are going to pitch in. You know, I know everybody's kind of anointed Jaden Hill as the Friday night starter. And, hey, I hope Jaden Hill's the Friday night starter because that means he's going to be baseball for us, okay? But I think Landon Marceau and AJ Labus have both competed this fall in a way where they all look like Friday night starters. In fact, they've probably outpitched Jaden up to this point. So it's the first time I've ever done this with the Purple versus Gold World Series. So we'll have Eddie Smith coach the team with the quote unquote hitters, and Nolan coach the team with those 12 pitchers. Okay. I'm sorry. We have 9 pitchers total. So 3 starting pitchers and 6 bullpen arms. That's right, Bill, right?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm sorry. Increase some depth there without me realizing it. So, I think it'll be a good matchup. We'll see if great pitching beats great hitting, or if this will be the time when great hitting will beat the good pitching. Either way, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to be excited about whatever happens, because I think it's going to show real well for one phase of our game. Just don't know what that phase of the game. And that's not to mention that the freshman pitchers that are pitching for the gold team aren't going to be able to work their way into vital roles. Some of those freshman pitchers, and I haven't talked about them yet, but there's been some freshman pitchers that have really stood out as well, much like Trey Morgan and Dylan Cruz and Safford and Drost and Thompson have. Guys like Garrett Edwards, Will Helmers, Ty Floyd, these guys have really stepped forward and shown that they're capable of really helping us as freshmen. And there's other guys too. Some of the other guys like Rice and Millis, Coleman, and so forth. Blake Money and the rest of them. They've had good days and they've had bad days. But Garrett Edwards, Helmers, and Floyd have been pretty consistently pitching at a high level. So those guys are going to have a chance to earn their way into a very vital role this week. And the hitters that are on the purple team, I mean, you're still talking about Gavin Dugas, Brody Drost, Jordan Thompson, Bianco, Jake Wyeth. There's still going to be a lot of guys on that team that are going to have vital roles on our squad in the spring as well. So it's going to be a good, exciting three-game series, and I'm looking forward to watching it. 3 7-inning games.
Coach, this is projecting ahead a little bit, and I guess the question is impossible, but we haven't seen a season this fall in any sport be scheduled normally. When you're talking with your colleagues at other schools, at this point, do you anticipate the full 56-game schedule and the normal start times, et cetera?
Well, again, Lynn, a great question. I don't have the answers for sure, of course. Nothing's been decided. I think everybody knows I'm on a committee with the SEC where I represent the baseball coaches, the softball coaches on it as well. And then Ray Tanner and John Cohen, former baseball players that are athletic directors, as well as some administrators. And we've been talking about all kinds of possibilities. I did just get word today that the Atlantic Coast Conference has decided to have a maximum of 50-game schedule for baseball. That's significant because, a lot of people think the ACC and the SEC are the two top baseball conferences. And we actually are scheduled to open up the season with Notre Dame, who plays in the ACC conference. Now, in my communication with the Notre Dame coach this morning, he still is planning on coming here for the opening weekend series. They would play us once and Army and Air Force one time each. So those 3 games would count as part of their 50 games. Originally, when I heard that it was cut to 50, I thought maybe they had cut out the first 2 weekends of the season, but that's not the case. They're allowing their schools to schedule however they wish within the NCAA parameters of February 19th being opening day, to the end of the season. But Notre Dame sounds like they're still planning on coming. I've not heard from Army or Air Force anything different from them. The second weekend, we have scheduled Cal Riverside. I have not communicated with them. And I purposely, because there's all kinds of rumors that they were talking about dropping their entire athletic program for a while. We have not heard anything since then, and I'm at some point going to reach out to them. The third weekend, tentatively, we have Oral Roberts scheduled to come in. I've not had any communication with them about their plans. The fourth weekend, we have Illinois coming in, a Big Ten team. And, of course, the Big Ten was not planning on playing football. They then decided to play football. The Big Ten has typically done what they think is best for their member institutions. I don't know if they're going to allow Illinois to come down here or not yet. So I got to find this out here. Lynn, I believe that athletic directors across the country have been 100% focused on getting through this football season. And then I think they've turned their attention to basketball now. And I think we're probably within the next week or so, but they're going to start turning their attention towards the spring sports, including baseball. And I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to have more definitive answers about it. But as of right now, our plans are to play the schedule as normal.
Thank you for that information.
Paul, you were talking a little bit about Jaden Hill. Has he been able to stretch out like y'all wanted him to do this fall? And how has he pitched when doing so?
Yeah, he's pitched 4 innings one time and 5 innings one time, and actually pitched better towards the end of his outings than he did at the very beginning, which has been the opposite of the way he's been before. He comes in normally, starts the game, and has very electric stuff, and then there's a little bit of a drop-off. His last outing, he struggled a little bit at the beginning, And then by the 5th inning, his velocity was up, his command was up, everything looked better. So, I try not to place too much emphasis in the results in the fall, with guys that you're going to count on and that you're just trying to get them better and get them right for the spring. Jaden has had some really good moments, but he hasn't pitched the way that I know he can pitch on a consistent basis yet. But we did get to stretch him out a little bit, and from a health standpoint, he handled it fine, and that was the most encouraging thing.
Hey, Coach, it's William, Tiger Rag. How you doing?
Hey, William, how are you?
Along the lines of the scheduling, I assume by now you've seen or read the parents' letter to the SEC office, and I want to just kind of get your thoughts on the potential impact or influence of having this unified front. Not only your parents, but all 14 teams want to see their sons play baseball a full season. Just to get your thoughts on the potential impact of that getting to the conference's hands.
Well, in all complete honesty, William, I don't think it was really necessary. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know until after it had been done. But I know the way that Greg Sankey has felt about things from the get-go. He has made it extremely clear to all the baseball coaches that it is absolutely his intention to play a full baseball schedule this spring. I don't have any doubt that we're going to play a full schedule in the spring. Greg was the one that stuck his heels in the sand and said, we're not going to make a rash decision about football. And I think it's shown that he's done the right thing there. And he's had the same attitude about baseball, quite frankly. So I don't really think that it impacts the SEC office at all, because I think they were already on board and wanted to have a full baseball schedule. I don't think they're going to feel pressure to do so any more than they wanted to do in the first place. Appreciate that the parents, took an initiative like that, but honestly, I don't even think it was necessary, because there's never been I haven't felt for 1 second there's been any hesitation from the SEC office about playing this baseball schedule. The only question would be what the schedule is going to look like. Is it going to be all SEC games, or is it going to be a combination of SEC games and non-conference games?
Coach, can you talk about your situation at catcher and how that lines up?
Sure, Kevin. How you doing? Okay.
Doing okay, thanks.
Good. Well, of course, we have Alex Milazzo back, and Alex is our number one catcher. I can tell you that nobody on our team can steal on him. I've never seen a catcher throw out as many base stealers as this guy. His release, his accuracy, his arm strength. This kid had arm surgery in the summer. I didn't even know he had a sore arm last year. He never said anything to anybody. And then when the season was canceled, he ended up having a rather significant surgery on his elbow. You would never know it watching him throwing now. He's back to 100%. And he's been phenomenal all fall with his throwing. There's areas that Alex needs to improve his game, become more consistent in. No catcher I've ever had has ever blocked balls in the dirt satisfactorily to my level of expectation, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm constantly pushing him to be better at that. And Alex is going to be a scrappy hitter. He's not going to be, a guy that's going to go out and hit 360 for us or hit 15 home runs. What we need him to be is a really tough out and do some little things that add up to make a big difference. Hitting the ball to the opposite field, dropping a bunt down, sacrifice bunt, hit and run. He's a really good base runner, runs better than you think he does as a catcher. But he's got those quick twitch fibers and he's got those quick actions. And but he's in there primarily for his defense, and whatever we get out of him offensively is going to be a lanyard for us. Okay. Hayden Travinsky, who we had anticipated would be our second catcher, has missed the entire fall because he had knee surgery last March after the season was canceled. It must have been in April. He had a torn meniscus in his knee. He's been back hitting on his own. He's not done anything catching. It was a very similar injury to what Saul Garza had to deal with a couple of years ago. So he hasn't been able to participate at all in fall practice. Jacob Wyeth is the junior college transfer that we had come in. And Jacob has done some good things. He's a wonderful young man. He's got a great attitude. He's a real team guy. He hustles like crazy. He does some good things behind the plate. I was surprised at how well he throws. He's thrown some base stealers out this fall. And usually that's the one area that, you find it's hard to find with catchers. And yet Jacob has stepped in there and done well. Some of his receiving skills, I think, need some work, and he's working on them. He's got some occasional power. I wouldn't say he's a great hitter, but on a given swing, he can do some damage. He's going to hit some balls in the gap and hit a ball out of the ballpark once in a while. So, and then, of course, you have Braden Doty, who seems like he's been here forever. He's in his 4th year now, and Braden has improved. He's worked hard, and he's getting bigger and stronger, and when he's gone in there, he's done a really good job. So I feel pretty comfortable with our catching core. I don't know, except for the fact that Milazzo throws outstanding. I don't know that it's, that we have a bunch of All-Americans lined up back there, but I think we're going to be very solid back there. And those are they're kind of like the offensive line on a good football team. You don't notice them unless you don't have somebody good there. And, I think that our catching is going to be just fine.
Hey, Paul, Reggie Chapman from WBRZ. I'm wondering, you mentioned Giovanni Giacomo. I mean, just what improvements do you say that he has made to kind of made himself establish in that spot in center field? And also I'm thinking about shortstop, the middle infield as well. Who's kind of, you said that was kind of a position of battle. Where are you kind of at there as well?
Okay, so Giovanni, I think his defense, as far as going to get the ball, has improved. I'm not ready to say he's as good as Andrew Stevenson or Zach Watson or Leon Landry quite yet. Okay, we've had some, or even Mikey Montauk or Jake Fraley. He's got a ways to go, but he looks like he's ready to burst that door down. He's got world-class speed out there. His range has shown to be really good, and when he gets to the ball, he's catching it. It's been an evolution for him. From his freshman year to now. He looks so much more confident as an outfielder, and he really looks like the quarterback out there. He's much more aggressive, taking charge, and I think defensively he's going to be fine. Offensively, he's still a little bit of an enigma for me, because on some days he just looks tremendous. He slaps the ball the other way, hits the ball into the seats in right field. He turns a single into a double. And then on other days, he'll strike out 3 times and not be able to drop a bunt down. If he could just get some more consistency, you're talking about a guy that could be a really great pro prospect and be a real force for us. And I moved Will Safford out there to push Giovanni in case Giovanni didn't. And it seemed like when I put Safford out there, it kind of kicked Giovanni into another gear, which allowed me to put Will Safford back into the infield. We can always put Dylan Cruz in center field if we need to as well, and plug Brody Drost into right field. So we have some options still there. But I really want Gio to be the center fielder, and I think he's got the ability to do it, and I hope he plays well enough to just take advantage of the opportunity and be a great player all year and then be a high draft choice next year. As far as shortstop goes, it was a 4-man battle to start with. I moved Will Safford off of shortstop and made it a 3-man battle between Zach Arnold, Collier Cranford, and Jordan Thompson. Then I moved Jordan Thompson to third base because I thought Jordan maybe had more of the looks of a third baseman, and let Cranford and Zach Arnold kind of battle it out. I would say at this point, and this is not February 19th, let's keep reminding ourselves, okay? But I would say Zach Arnold has moved ahead in the battle for shortstop. So what I've done now, the combination of feeling that Zach Arnold's moved ahead of Cranford and Jordan Thompson started to struggle at third base, and I wanted to get him back at a position where he was more comfortable and confident because he's played he's more experienced as a shortstop. I wanted to see if I put him back there, if this kid would get back to showing some development and improvement, which is exactly what happened. So by moving him back to shortstop, I moved Cranford over to third base and put him into the battle with Safford for the starting third base job. So right now, I would say it's Arnold's job to lose, but Jordan Thompson is showing some great strides in his improvement here. Okay, I think Cade Doty would be our second baseman. Cade is probably the most consistent hitter on our team. He's worked really hard on his defense. I will tell you that. He's not, DJ LeMahieu at second base right now, defensively, but he's made some really great plays. Unfortunately, he's made some errors on some rather routine plays as well. So there's room for improvement, and I keep wanting him to become more consistent there as well. I think the kid has really taken a lot of pride in his defense, and he's working hard at it. And I expect that he's going to do a decent enough job to hold on to the job at second base.
Thanks, Paul.
Paul, go ahead.
I was just saying things.
Do you have just a couple of seconds maybe to talk about how the minor league baseball situation is perhaps going to unfold? And I really, have a great deal of sympathy for those guys who are trying to make a living at this game, and the opportunities have been withdrawn. How do you look at this thing?
Well, I feel the same way you do. I feel very sad for our sport, the sport of baseball. It was a strange major league season, to say the least. You flip the games on and you see cardboard people in the stands. There's no fans there. The magic of television, makes it still look like a good ball game, and the World Series was exciting. And, I admire the fact that they were able to get through it. Everybody knows the minor league season, however, was canceled in its entirety. And I think there's some people out there that are worried whether or not there's going to be a minor league season again next year. In all honesty, I think we have a better chance in the SEC of playing a schedule February through May and then into the NCAA tournament than maybe the minor leagues do, because the minor leagues are scattered all over the country. There's so many teams, there's so many players, there's so much travel and fluidity with the rosters where guys are going from one place to another. How they're going to handle that if this COVID thing is still very prevalent in our society worries me. I know that there's some major league teams that are planning on starting the season next year with no fans in the stands. That's April, and so if the major leagues still if the major leagues still don't have it under control on how they can handle it, how are minor league teams scattered all over the country going to be able to handle it? I hate to sound like a pessimist, but I worry about it. Well, and then when these youngsters can't play, I think of Josh Smith, I think of Greg Dykman. I talked to Kramer Robertson the other day. Kramer was a injury or a positive COVID test away from getting called up to the big leagues this year. He was at the alternate site for the Cardinals, and he was ready, and he was going to be the next guy to go to the big leagues if somebody got sick or got hurt. It never happened, so he never got there. But what if they don't have a minor league season for Kramer to play next year? What if Josh Smith has another year of not playing? Cole Freeman, Dykman, Lang and Hess and all those guys, you just feel, and then those are just, our players I'm talking about. What about, the game, the health of the game as a whole? I'm worried about it, Lynn. I am, I'll be honest with you. But, at the same time, I've always thought that college baseball was the best route. Maybe it's going to encourage more kids from high school to come to college first. And maybe it'll continue to strengthen our game and allow us to hold on to some players. And, and maybe in the long run, that's going to be the best thing for those kids.
Do you have any insight about the draft
For next year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's going to go back to probably 20 rounds, maybe 30 rounds. I know it's going to be later next year, which I'm glad it's after the World Series, but it's a little bit later than we had hoped it would be. I think they're scheduling for like July 13th or 11th or 13th, something like that. I can't remember the exact dates, which is going to put a little bit more pressure on us because we may not know our final rosters till a later date. And if you're scrambling to try to fill spots that you lost guys to the draft, it's going to make it even more challenging than it's ever been. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, if you don't want your players being drafted during the season, you're going to have to deal with things like that as well. So that's what I've heard, Lynn, but I don't have any more access to information than anybody else does that's read about it in media outlets.